Okay, great. I want to welcome you to the Trader Vision 2020 user workshop for June 16th. And I'll just give you a quick thumbnail. We are going to have, um, let's see here. We are going to have a walkthrough of the setup function in 2020. And if we have time, I'll go through goal view as well. And then I'm going to show you 10 charts quickly. I had shared a list of 37 that I just pulled off of various scans. They all have something to recommend them. They may be choppy. They may have a reason why I would not enter them. But there were just 37 that I pulled together and I think are worth a look and worth evaluation. You may pitch them quickly, or you may decide they're worth really planning and fine-tuning. From that list, I'll show you 10 charts and ask you guys to vote on which of those 10 you'd like to plan, and then we'll do a trade plan for each of those two. Okay, so that's the basic agenda, but I'm here for you, and if we need to, I will stay as long as you guys have questions. So we'll go from there. I do have one other thing that I want to express on you, and that is I want you, particularly those of you, I know there are several new people, but those of you who have been using Trader Vision for a while, we could use some case studies. So if you have trades that you've planned that you're particularly happy with, where you saw something that the product made a difference for you, we'd love to hear about it. I'd like to get some just basic documentation so that we can share that with the other users, and everybody can see how you can benefit and what you can get out of it as you use it. Okay, so if you've got anything like that that you would like to share, I would appreciate it if you'd email me. That link for my email address should work. So with that said, let me pull up Trader Vision. Just a second here. Okay, I think we can see that now. Has the screen changed? Everybody can see that? I'll assume that you can. And we'll just start out. So, as the first time you open 2020 and you input your license information, you'll get dropped into the dashboard the same way you do every time. But the first task that you have is setting the application up for yourself. And that starts under the Setup tab, and specifically in the Application sub-tab. This is where you'll always be able to see what version you have of the product, and you're able to do a few things. The first one that I want to point out is how you calculate the shares that you have the opportunity to purchase. So for position sizing, we offer two ways to do that. The first way is the maximum dollar loss to the stop price. So in other words, the difference between the entry price and the stop price is what will be used to divide up the money that you will are willing to risk to determine how many shares you can buy. The other way to do it is by the total dollars per position, and that would be for somebody who, for example, always wanted to have, whatever it is, $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, $1 million. Always wanted to have the same amount in every trade. you would use the total dollars for position. The second thing is something that I'm particularly proud of, and I knew this existed, but I didn't really understand how prevalent it was until I started doing research. But it turns out about 20% of people have some color blindness, and everybody has color preferences. Some people will look at the way I've got things set up and go, oh God, I can't stand that. And other people will have it neon orange or green or purple. And that would not look good to me. I couldn't stand looking at that for more than about 10 seconds. So you have the ability here to change the colors for each aspect of the program, and you can set this up for you. So if you are somebody that's colorblind, you can change them to whatever colors work best for your particular type of color blindness. And that's something I found out about it. I had not realized, but there's more than one type. There's a red green, and there's a blue yellow, and just all different types of color blindness. But you can pick whatever colors you want for your background, even down to putting in the RGB values. If you have something specific that if you're the artistic type, you want to look it up and get it just perfect. The same thing goes for setting your flags and setting the color of the calculation area. You can also change the font to any of the system fonts that you have loaded on your computer. And you can change the font size. Now here's the caveat with this. It depends on your monitor size and monitor resolution that you have, both for the monitor and for the James, the question is for the audio or for the video. How did I pull up the color palette? You just click on any of these colors. So if I want to look at flags, I click on flags. It shows you the current color here, and if I were to pick another color, it would change it to that, and then you can mess with the hues within that color family. Yes, this is being recorded. This is being recorded, Linda. I'm sorry, I was talking about the font size. Depending on the size of your monitor and the resolution you have set up in both your operating system and your video card capabilities, you'll have to play with the font size and the font family. They interact together to find one where you can see all of the text and you can actually read it. So it's kind of there's no such thing as a perfect setup. It's something that each individual will have to play with depending on the hardware and software that they have on their computer. But at any rate, those are the two main functions on setup application. And that's, you'll mainly use this for the initial setup and then possibly to come back here and check what version you're on as you do updates. That's really what you'll use this screen for. You do have a couple other options that are available throughout setup. One of them is to set a password. You just click on this button. It pops up. You put in a password if you would like to have one. If you decide later that you don't want to have one, you just delete everything you've got in, you set a new password of blank, essentially, and that will delete your password. If you do set a password, please write it down. We can help you, but you don't want to have to wait on emails and responses to get into your system. So write down your password and put it someplace where you can find it. The other thing that you can use, and I don't think very many of you will use it, but you may someday, and that is you can move Trader Vision 2020 to another computer. In order to do that, you first deactivate it within the current computer. During that deactivation process, you will, it asks you, are you sure you want to deactivate it? And this is not a permanent decision. The world will not come to an end if you make a mistake in this, so don't Don't sweat it. But you know, you say, yes, I want to deactivate it, then it will ask you to do a backup. I'm not going to do that right now, but and you'll do a backup of the entire database, and then it will go out to the server and deactivate that license. You can then go to your new computer, install TraderVision, and then go into trade log and backup restore and do a full system restore from that backup that you just did during the deactivation process. And that's the process of moving from one computer to the other. So that really is everything we can do under setup applications. And I apologize, I'm just waiting a little bit for the lag to catch up. I think we're fine. The next thing I guess you would want to do is go to the other end of the series of tabs. And that's where you'll set up your accounts. You can add new accounts, you can remove old ones, although if you remove old ones, you've got to get rid of the trades. You can't delete an account if there's, if there are trades in the database for that account. But, the other thing you can do, and you can do this for many of the options here, is that, let's say, for example, I decide, instead of having to choose between 5 menu options, I only want to have 3 choices available to me. So I select one of these, and this little checkbox here, hide from drop-down lists. If I click that, you see that it changes that one to grayed out. And at this point, account reorder test, if I go to trade view and pull down accounts, it's not listed there. Now I'm down to 4. Okay, so you do the same process again, and you can get down to 3. To reverse the process, you just highlight that account and uncheck the hide from drop-down list box. Save your work again, and you're back to the way you were. To set up a new account, you just click New Account. It brings up a blank field, and you give it a name. I guess let's call this June example. Put in your opening balance. I don't know. Let's just say 50,000. Since there is no trades currently on this, the opening balance is really the current balance, but there's no activity to actually bring that current balance over. The next thing you want to assign is, what do you want to benchmark yourself against? If you trade mostly small caps, for example, you may want to benchmark yourself against the small cap index, the IWM. If you trade mostly the mega stocks, you maybe want to benchmark yourself against the DIA, the diamonds, which is the Dow 30, or the S&P 500, which is the SPY index. But for this example, let's just say that I want to benchmark myself against the IWM, which is small caps. The next thing you enter is your commissions, and you can do that multiple ways and combinations of ways. So for example, let's just say that I've got a $3.99 per trade minimum, but I also pay, 0.00, I pay half a cent per share. And perhaps I even have a minimum of $4.99. Okay, so all 3 of those factors will now be in play anytime you enter a trade for calculating your commissions. It will say there's a $3.99 flat charge plus a half penny per share, and they have to add up to $4.99 or greater. Otherwise, the commission will be $4.99 for each leg of the trade. For shorting, this is under commissions, but for shorting costs, if you do short, the typical brokerage, and I don't know of any that do not use this, uses 360 days. So Let's just say that you pay 2.5% per 360 days, call that a year. Um, each brokerage then also has a margin multiple, uh, usually by the type of account you have, but also sometimes based on individual trade history. And I don't know the factors that go into that, but theoretically, the more net worth you have, the less of a risk you would be. That margin multiple is strictly there to provide them a cushion to know that they can get paid if you have a position that goes way, way against you. So I'm just going to just use 3, and it's, maybe 2 is a better number, but let's just say 3. Then as my defaults, I want to have long trades as my default. Most people will want that, but you could change that to short if you prefer. And this is where we, when you talked about application, we made that decision. How do we want to calculate the number of shares to buy, or at least to recommend to buy? And I've chosen maximum dollars loss between entry and the stop loss. So on the June example one, I'm going to say for a $50,000 account, I'm comfortable risking, let's just say $250. So for each trade, between the entry price and the stop loss price, based on the number of shares, well, the number of shares will be $250 divided by that difference, if that makes sense. The planned duration of a trade is not really used in long calculations. It's only really used to help estimate the costs of shorting a stock. However, I do have a user that has told me she finds it very handy to remind her that she's not married to a stock, that she's only planning to be in for a short period of time. So typically for me, if I'm a swing trader, this is going to be some number less than 20, and I'm just going to pick 10, 2 weeks, 2 trading weeks, as a good number. So if I were to short a stock, it would say that I've got to have 3 times the position size in liquid assets in my account to repay the brokerage, should that trade go against me and that loan be at risk. I'm going to pay 2.5% per year, and we're going to estimate that the trade's going to be 10 days long. So it's going to be very, very minimal unless it's a huge trade. But there can be, if it's a large trade, there can be some shorting costs involved. And that's what this field is actually used for. Again, we save our work, and we're off to the next level. This is where you set the short-term bias of the market. And the purpose of setting that is, 1, to warn yourself if you're doing something that you should do. And 2, to allow us to, after the fact, after the trade, to gather performance history so that we can then go back and say, when I'm trading long and the SPY is trending up, I do well. When I'm trading long and the SPY is trending down short term, I do poorly. Or something of that nature, however it works out for your situation. It would depend on your trading style and the patterns and signals you use and how you manage your trades. These again are not, these are just the defaults that come with the system. 3 basic ways to look at the short-term trend and be able to assign risk levels to it for warnings, and be able to assign categories that can then be measured against. If you want to add a new one, just like with accounts, you click New, enter whatever you want it to be. Let's just say 3 EMA, 3 EMA above 8 EMA. So the 3 EMA is above the 8 EMA. And for a long trade, I'm going to say that has no risk. But if it's a short trade, perhaps there is risk, and you'll have to make a judgment call whether you think this condition would be a high risk, medium risk, or low risk for a short position. I'm just going to say medium risk. So from now on, anytime I choose that option from a drop-down menu, if I'm short, it will pop up with the pink medium level warning. If I had one that I decided I don't want to see in the drop-down list, again, just as in accounts, click it. It is now grayed out. Save my changes, and that will not appear on the list. If I decide I wanted to delete it, let's just highlight it, click delete. It asks if you're sure. Away it goes. Save my work, and we're back where we were. Okay, did that make sense to everybody? Okay, moving along here. Here's where we start really getting in there and personalizing things for you, even more than market bias. For the long-term bias, yeah, you could have lots of different things that you could look at. Again, by default, we send this to you with some SPY conditions based on the 50 SMA of the SPY and how it's trading relative to that. So is it above it or below it, and is that SMA 50 SMA rising, flat, or falling? And each of those categories then has a risk level that you can assign and you can change for each direction of trade. So for a long, maybe you decide, well, you know, for a long, that's really not no risk. That's low risk. Okay, change it, save it. It's now going to reflect that in the calculations of whether or not to give you a warning. And again, you can add as many of these as you want. You can delete these if you have, you know, a different way to look at long-term trend for the market that matches your trading style. You know, perhaps, I don't know, perhaps you use a long period RSI or a long period stochastics as a measure of the longer-term trend of your of the market. However you happen to do it, that's what the purpose of this is, to set it so that we can then, after the fact, well, at the time of the trade, to warn you based on how you set these things up. You know, do you really want to be doing something that you've decided has a medium risk or a high risk, or at least is not a no risk situation? You know, so it'll warn you of those situations. And then after the fact, again, we can look at how we performed in, you know, long trades in each of those categories and short trades in each of those categories, and get a better feel for what works best for you and what works, you know, poorly. Again, the whole concept is do more of what works good, improve or skip what hasn't been working for you. Waiting on the lag to catch up here. Okay, here we are at long patterns. Long patterns, again, we give you some basics in there. As you've seen in the room, Rick sets those up for himself, and I've sometimes in some accounts set things up differently. But if you've got some sort of pattern that you trade, maybe it's an MACD crossover. So let's just say MACD 12.9% K cross. If that's the pattern that you trade, now you can select it. And just as with all the other setup, if you decide, well, I don't trade any of these, candle signals, then delete them. Just put in the patterns that you do trade, and that's what will be available to you. Or if you prefer, leave them, click them, hide them from the list, and then you won't have to look at them in the drop-down list, but they'll still be there. The next thing is short patterns, and again, the same thing holds true. Whatever patterns you choose to trade for the short side, whether it's candlestick patterns, whether it's Western patterns, head and shoulders, whether it's an M or an H pattern, whatever patterns that you trade, this is what you want to customize it for. And the same as I said with everything else, you can hide them from the list if you decide I don't want to have to look at that because I'm never going to trade that pattern, or you can just delete them. Your choice. The next section is candle signals, and this is something that in one of these versions it may be just changed to signals. It depends on what our user base starts to look like, but we do have people that trade non-candlestick signals, so they'll be trading RSI particular readings, or MACD crossovers as a signal, or well, pick your indicator. I saw somebody had the Arun oscillator today that I talked to, and if you trade particular settings or indications from that indicator, that's your signal, then put it in and start recording it so that you know the trades where you've used it as your entry signal, or your confirmation that you want to get into a trade, that it's working for you, it's not working for you, what the true situation is. And again, you need to assign risk levels for both long trades and short trades for whatever signals you enter. As with everything else, you can hide it, you can delete it, you can add new ones. And that's setup. Okay, so we've gone through the entire setup with me explaining things in about 28 minutes. That's not too bad. I think I will do a very quick overview of setting goals, and the reason I want to do it quickly is because this is going to be changing a little bit in the future. We're going to try to put in a little bit more of a reality factor. And I can't explain that to you tonight, but suffice it to say we've devised a way so that you can play with multiple variables to make it a realistic plan that you can achieve. For now, the process is very simple. Whatever your account balance is, it shows you to get from that value, in this case 150,000 for this new account. Well, let's use the one I created, the June example. So to get from 50,000 to, let's pick a number. To get to 60,000 in 12 months only requires 1.5%, just over 1.5% per month. And then I have to decide how many trades per month I want to do. I typically would do about 20. So let's just put that in there for now. And it says, you know, you really only need to make 38 bucks a trade. If you trade 20 times per month, will you miss a half? And that goes to um, the reality factor that I talked about. I don't want to get into it tonight, but you will have um, four, four, four factors that you will decide how you can either improve or leave based on the historical average value, or what you want to do and how that will affect your plan to make it more realistic. For now, since we know we're not going to win all 20 trades, what I typically do is if I'm planning to trade 20 times in a month, I'll just cut that number in half. So now I need to get all my winnings done in 10 trades. And it says instead of 38 bucks, I need to make 76.50 per trade. The reason these are all blank over here is because there are no trades entered for this account, and therefore there's no history, there's no past performance to display. And with this particular plan, it shows the goal down here in green. If we did have past performance, there would be a light gray or white line that would show you're either beating your goal or you're not beating your goal, and how you're doing. If you look at the monthly data, it then breaks down each of those months, because those are not static numbers. They change as your balance gets bigger. That 1.53% becomes a slightly larger number. What we've done is simply for planning purposes, Richard, and the question is, could I explain the of trades this size? What it's doing is it says you've got a $50,000 account, you're going to make 10 trades, so they can be, $5,000 per trade, assuming you wanted to try to do them all the same day. You could trade larger amounts, you could trade smaller amounts, but this just gives you a rough idea of the size of trade that you could do in a kind of a worst case scenario, so that you don't have, you know, uh, I saw some crazy planning where somebody wanted to double their account in 3 months. Well, okay, you got to do whatever the number is, 20% a month, whatever that number happened to have been. And, they said, well, I can make that work, by doing X number of trades. But the average trade size then was, they were trading 25 and 30% of their account per trade in order to, make that number easily. So this just gives you an idea. You need to win 76.50, and you probably want to be below 5,000 for sure. That's 10% of your account, um, to, as the total trade cost. You save your goals, and now we're set to go. That's all I wanted to present as an overview. But that gives you an idea how you're going to work at setting goals and whether or not they're realistic. I think this is very realistic that you can make 1.5% per month. But if you're a brand new trader, the idea is to continue to raise your goals. So maybe you start at 1% per month, and then after you're achieving that, bump it up to 2. I believe Rick likes to use the rule of 2. So he starts at 2 and, goes to 4 and then goes to 6. I believe that's the system that he likes to use for newer traders. But that gives you an idea. Joan, the question is, when I make a trade plan, it gives me a smaller dollar amount to trade. due to maximum dollar to loss. Let me go back here. That's correct, Joan. If you think about that for a minute, there's two ways to size your positions. One is to take your account, total dollars, and say every position is going to be $10,000. The other way to plan your positions, or another way at least, is to say the maximum I can, my risk tolerance, the maximum I want to put at risk per trade is, I'm just going to say $500. So whether that trade is $10,000 in size total cost or $100,000 in size total costs, what matters is the difference between the entry price and the stop price. And I will divide that by the amount that I've set here. On this particular, there we go. This particular example, I've decided that the maximum my risk tolerance is $250. So we take let's just say an entry price of $10, and the logical place to put the stop is $9. So there's a $1 difference. It will tell me I can trade 250 shares because I'm risking $1 per share between entry and stop loss. Does that make sense? Linda, where are you talking about? The question was, it's not really important, but is there a reason that my numbers stay on the left-hand side versus being centered? Where do you mean? These are all centered values. Did you mean here when looking at the monthly data? I guess I'll have to talk with you offline. Are you using a Mac by any chance? Okay, you're using a Mac. I'll have to. I'll talk with my programmer about that, but it may be an issue with the Mac control. Mac is such a small part of the market that they have, in almost all programming languages, they have fewer sets of controls that have been built for Mac than for Windows, and it's just a market thing. Developers who are building controls build them first for the larger customer base for Windows. So my suspicion is that that's what the issue is, and I will have to talk to my programmer and find out. I don't have the ability to pull up a Mac right now to look at it, and I don't want to dig into code, but I'll make a note here. Linda K. Goal view. Left justify Mac. Yeah, I'll make a note and get back to you on that. I can't really tell you for now. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to do is I'll wait on the screen to catch up. I wanted to show you 10 charts and then ask you to pick 2 of them that we can trade, and I'll set up a trade plan for tomorrow. This is off that list of of 37 stocks that I posted earlier, and I'll post it again now, which you can go through at to your heart's content. But let me just go through. I'm going to use the black and white chart. Some people like the naked chart, if you will. Others are not used to it and don't like it. I go back and forth. I prefer to see some moving averages, but I do know that I've had people tell me, "Oh man, I really need that black and white, all that color and those lines, and everything just confuses the view." So the first thing we want to consider is what's the trend of the overall market, because that's going to influence, how aggressive we are in trading and what kind of patterns we want to trade and so forth. And like everything else in trading, it really depends on your time frame. So if you're looking at the last week or so, regardless of today, you've got to say we're in a downtrend. If you look at the last month, you'd have to say, well, we're just chopping sideways. If you look at the year, you'd say, well, sure, we're in a uptrend and we're just pulling back. So it really all depends on your time frame that you're looking at. And that's why in Trader Vision we've set up both a short term and a longer term, and it depends on how you define those two words, short term and long term, as to how you measure the trend of the market and what you think. So each of you has to come up with your own definition of what you think the market's doing right now, because that's got to influence what you pick. With that said, I'm going to say short term we're in a downtrend, and longer term we're in a sideways trend, because I'm not going to enter any trades that are going to last 6 months. So that's how I tend to look at the market. Let's go through 10 charts out of that 37 that I pulled out, and you guys just take a look at them, and then I'm going to ask you to vote on them. So here's Lulu. We've got a PBO. I don't believe this is an RBB. I guess I could do that. Yeah, no, it's certainly not an RBB. CA is the next one. I'm going to go over here back to the black and white. I'd call that a flag, and whether or not it's broken out is, I guess, open to interpretation. There's your pole, there's your flag, and it's depending on exactly where you set it, it's barely broken out, or maybe it's if you pull it down a little bit, it broke out decently today. Ironwood, same thing. We've got a bullish engulfing within a flag, and possibly a flag break. Penn, depends on your terminology. Some people would call this a two-star morning star. No matter how you look at it, it's either a PBO, a pullback opportunity, or a flag that's broken out. I'm just going to call it a PBO. Calvano Growers, another bullish engulfing, another flag. I think this one's much more likely to not really be a breakout. It pulled back off the high of its wick, but it is, it was a nice move today, and it was a candle signal. MYCC, again, a pullback. I believe this one is an RBB. Yeah, there's your 50 in blue, and the 100 as well, the 34 in orange. So this is an RBB. It is also a pullback opportunity, and as of yesterday, you had a morning star. So you've got 3 factors going for you in that one. VNDA, another engulfing signal, another flag with a possible breakout. I'm just going to draw the top line. So we broke out of the flag a little bit today. Shenandoah or Shen, another engulfing, another pullback opportunity. This one's closer to breakout. ARTC, this is an RBB, round and bottom breakout. We've got the trend improving, so we've got a low, a high, and a higher low. You could even say low, high, higher low, higher high, higher low. You could say that that's a morning star, although I would prefer to see these two down a little bit, but you could make the argument. You could call that a flag breakout if you prefer. So that's what we're looking at there. And the last one's Kodak. I guess that's just a J-hook. It's already broken out. So that's a J-hook that breaks out today. Vince, not right now. We are working on a options plugin or add-on, if you will, because options are different from stocks. And I've had some people say, well, why don't we, we can just enter the option price. Well, it only works for certain strategies, single leg strategies, first of all. And the other problem is that when we go out and grab prices to update the prices, we currently don't have a data vendor that can give us option pricing updates. And so that's something of an issue. Excuse me, I need a drink there. But at any rate, that's on the way. Just hang with us. Keep the faith. We'll get it to you, I promise. And that product will be out sometime later, probably a few months. But I honestly can't give you a date. So those are the 10 stocks. I'm going to change over here to survey. Can everybody see that? Can somebody give me a yes or no? Okay. Go ahead and make your selection and submit. And, whatever the top two stocks are, we'll go ahead and plan those. Now, let's see how I find I'm not getting any updates as to how am I supposed to get my answer? Well, that's fine. Can I see the results? Edit survey. Okay, well, that was useful, not so much. Let me go back to no problem, Vince. I'm glad to. And like I said, that's something we're working on, and I have been working with a programmer, and it's just a major undertaking. It's not simple. I apologize, guys, but I can't get to the answers on that. So let me see if I can do it with this other tool. Can people see that now? Obviously you can because you're voting. And I apologize, but it only let me fill out 8 of the 10. Kodak and ARTC were left off the list because they just happened to be the last 2 on the list. Okay, I think we can see that our choices seem to be CA and MYCC. Would everybody agree with that? I'm going to go ahead and close the poll then, and let's just plan those out. So let's look at CA. We've got a depending on your terminology, if some of you are from the Bigelow world, that's a left-right combo, but it's certainly a doji bullish engulfing. We're in a flag or pullback opportunity, and we are challenging the breakout. Where would we put a stop on this? Well, for my money, we want to get down in here underneath that support, and does that correspond with anything? Well, over here it does. It corresponds fairly decent, but that's way over there. So I'm going to focus mostly on this in close, and I'm probably going to say something like 32.40 is where I'm going to want my stop. Let's make this a little bit bigger. And where are our goals? As you see, I'm a fib user. Whoops. There we go. I'll just wait for the screen to catch up. In this case, we don't really have history here to work with until back here, really at the beginning, over a year ago, is where our history is. And that history tells us that there is a level right in there where we had a double top before that we're going to have to deal with. It's not far above the breakout. In the absence of good information, I'm going to defer to my fibs. I always use this as a way to help draw my eyes to important levels of support or resistance. In this case, and I'm sure you guys cannot see the numbers, but it tells me that we're looking at 33.64 here, 33.96 here, and 34.48 up here. So let's pull up Trader Vision and enter a new trade. And this one is CA. We're going to be long. I'm just going to use that June example account. Short-term bias. Well, I think the short-term bias is down. Does anybody disagree with me? Gwen, does anybody else hear me? Omnovia shows me that I'm still broadcasting. Okay, Gwen? Gwen, if you use that red X in the upper right, that will reset the room for you, reboot the room for you. So I've got the SPY trending down, and the longer term market bias, I believe we're above the 50 on the SPY, but it's flat. Okay, so we've got a warning here because we're trading against the short-term direction of the market, even though today was a nice candle in the SPY. I'm going to call that I guess I will call that a bullish engulfing because that is really engulfing a doji. Normally, in my other setup, I would call that a left-right combo, but let's just call it an engulfing for now. The pattern, well, that's a pullback opportunity or a flag. It's kind of dealer's choice on that. I'm just going to call it a pullback opportunity. Where do we want to enter the trade at? Well, for my money, because this is our breakout level, and I'm waiting on the screen to catch up, because this is our breakout level, and because of the double top at that same general area, I'm going to want to break out above that. So let's call that 33.15. And my stop, I'm going to put that up nice and tight. I said 32.41. That's probably still pretty loose. And then what are my targets? Well, I know I'm going to have a fight here, but that's too tight for me to really call that a target. So I'm going to use the fib numbers here, which is 33.64. So let's call it 33.60. And second target, let's call it 34.48. Trader Vision tells us, based on the fact that I want to risk $250 between the entry and the stop, that I can buy 322 shares. I know that's going to be too much based on the account size, but just for argument's sake, let's put in 300. And yes, that's almost 20% of the account. We're not going to trade nearly that big. Let's chop it down to 100, and that's probably still going to be too big for us. Yeah, that's 6%, 6 2/3%. So this is probably something that personally I wouldn't trade unless I could get it down to 50 shares. And at 50 shares, let's just say I take off half of it. That's 0.45%. And this was a 34. And if I take off the other half here at clear up here at 34.48, which is a 61.8% extension. The risk reward is terrible. I'm trading too big or bigger than I want to trade at over 3% of my account. I'm trading against the short-term trend of the market. And I've got 3 warnings up here that tell me that, and you can page through each of them that tell you just exactly what I told you. This is something that I'm going to pass on. Unless I can find a different way to trade this that makes sense. Perhaps you could talk yourself into setting your stop at the top of this candle. I couldn't do that. But if you were able to talk yourself into that being a good idea, then perhaps you can refigure the numbers. I don't think at an all-time high I'm going to chase that way. Good, Gwen. I'm glad you got sound back. So CA, in this case, the chart looked nice, but the trade, once we planned it out, uh, geez, it's just not viable for us. So let's go on. I'll go ahead and save this, but let's go on to our other chart. I believe MYCC was the other one. Is that correct? Let me pull up that again. I apologize. I got to wait on the screen to keep refreshing. I'm going to go to trade log and pull that trade up quickly. Okay, so up here at the top are all three warnings, and you'll see that this first warning is labeled 1 of 3, and there's a little button both here and at the opposite end of that red bar that you can use to page through the warnings. So the second warning is, are you sure you want to trade a position that large? And the third warning is, does this trade's reward to risk ratio really meet your requirements? And in this case, we decided no. The way we had that trade planned, it just wasn't going to work. So let's go to new and move this out of the way. So on MYCC, let's look at what we've got here. We've got that pullback opportunity. We've got a rounded bottom breakout, and yesterday we had a morning star that was confirmed. Does everybody see those three things? Does anybody need those explained? Okay, I'm not seeing anybody typing. Well, possibly a couple people are. Okay, so we got yeses. Excellent. Okay, everybody understands the patterns. We're good to go. Let's talk about where we want to enter. There's two ways to trade any pullback. You either enter it when you have a signal off the bottom of the pullback, or you enter it at the breakout point. This is kind of no man's land in the middle of the breakout, but let's see where I've drawn some lines here that look like resistance levels to me. And I say these 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 touches, 8 at that level makes 13, 18. A pretty significant level for this one. So that's where I'm going to enter, is when we've hit 13, 18. And there's a second reason to do that. This is a long-term downtrend for the stock. So if we pull it in here, you can see what that chart looks like overall. If I wait to 13, 18, I will have broken through that downtrend as well as broken out of that significant resistance level. So I'm going to say we enter at 13.19, just for argument's sake. I see another shelf up here that I'm going to call resistance. And that's up there at 1402. And that's pretty close to the 38.2% fib extension of this run. So that's a pretty good target. I see this top up here, which was a high on April 27th, and there's also the top from these 2 days back in the beginning of March. Does it touch anything way back? No, not that we can see. So that's going to be another significant level at 1481. Where can I put my stop on this thing? That's the next thing that we need to figure out. Well, I'm going to use my fib. You can see that the fib, it hit this fib level here and bounced right off. So that's clearly support below. and that level just happens to match up to you know, a little bit of action here, and there's the close was above it, and you know, it was a high and a low there, so that level's pretty darn good as a support level, and I'm going to make that my stop. So what does this trade pan look like then? Let's pull it up. While I wait for the screen to catch up, I'm going to type in the symbol. We've got the same short-term bias. SPY is trending down. The SPY is above the 50, but it's flat. In this case, what is my signal? I'm going to say that this was a morning star. I'm going to say that the pattern is a rounded bottom breakout. And you can do what Rick has done. You can set up in setup, as I showed you earlier tonight. If you have, you know, you want to call a PBO within a RBB as one pattern, then you can certainly do that. My setup trigger, as I said, I want to be above 1318, which will get me above the downtrend and above the significant level. So let's make that 1319, you know, and I probably would put 1320 if I was going out there. This fib level is where I'm going to probably set up, and I know that's going to be a far away at that point up here. But let's call it 1243. My first target is up here at 1402. And my next target is up there at 1481. So it tells me based on that $250 risk, I could buy 314 shares. Let's just make it 300 and see how big that's going to make it. Well, that's still almost 8% of my account. What if we cut it in half? Yeah, I can live with you know, 4% of my account. And so if I took off you know, half of it, 75 shares at target 1, I make 5.5%. And the other half at the second target, I make 11.5%. So to the first target, I'm risking 6.25% to make 5.75% or 5.8%. Again, the risk reward is not even 1-to-1. But on the other hand, all I've got to hit is 1380, which is right about here, and just happens to be the 23.6% fib extension. And if I hit that, where's my, there we go. If I hit that, I will have made my 4.62% if I sell the whole position at that level, and I will have made my goal in the trade. So that is an alternative for you. Now, since both of those are iffy, let's put this in 1319. Was my trigger. And that's a penny above 1318 resistance. Let's see what we've got here. If any of these others might set up as more viable for us. I'm liking yeah, I think so. Let's go back and look at this ironwood. So you get a bonus tonight. I'll run through a third one here. Um, I'm going to be able to tuck that stop up tight underneath today's candle. So because we've got the fib that has acted as support, so the 23.6 retracement is at 1255. That's where I'm going to put my stop. I'm going to put my entry just above today's close, so let's call it 1308. And I'm going to say 1352. Yeah, we've got enough activity that bounces off of that level to say 1352 is going to be resistance. So that's going to be my first target. And it looks like the top of this area also coincides to these lows, coincides to a top here, coincides to lows there. So that 1447 line, I guess I had drawn sometime in the past. And again, 14, was it 95? Yeah. 1495, you can see how everything's supported at that level, and support tends to become resistance. So let's look at the plan on ironwood. IRWD, short-term bias is down. Long-term bias is above the 50 but flat. I've got a bullish engulfing today. I've got a flag. Let's just call that a pullback opportunity. I'm going to trigger above today's close. What is it? 16th. So we're going to get in at 1308. We've got our stop at 1255. Our first target is 1447. Our second target is 1495. Oops, I'm sorry. I got to move these down. $13.52 was my first target. So what does this look like? It says we can do 448 shares. I know on a $50,000 account that's going to be too big. Let's just see what 200 shares does. 5% of my account. Just for argument's sake, let's say that I can live with that. Let's say I sell 100. 2% in? I don't think so. Wow. That's a valid level. Moving this out of the way. Yeah, I can't justify not leaving that level, so I'm gonna sell there. And I'm gonna sell 50 at each of the others. So dead net, if I were to follow this plan, you know, I'd have a 7% trade. So I'm risking 4.4% for a long-term possibility of 7.1%, but to the first target, it's only 3%, so it's less than 1 to 1. And again, that's with warning. So I'm trading very large. I'm trading with not a great risk reward, but I am going to be able to make my goal fairly well, with a little bit of trouble at that first level. I need to make 1357. So again, this is one I'm going to pass on probably. So what does that tell you? We had 3 trades that looked good on the chart. They got signals. But we were trading against the market short-term bias. And we don't have great risk reward. that's telling me that the market, the universe, however you want to think about it, is telling us to be careful with your longs. Um, it isn't telling us, you know, go short, but it's telling us even the longs that look good at first glance may not be so great given everything we got. That's right, James. You know, fishing is an option. As Rick likes to say, CIAP is a great stock. Uh, Cash is a position. That's all I had for tonight, guys. I don't want to go through and trade them all or plan them all. I know that you would love me to do that, but we'd be here all night. Do I have any other questions that I can help with? Yes, Ernie, it is. Um, you know, it really, you can't do things that a lot of people teach. There are a lot of snake oil salesmen, is what I call them, that are out there telling you, well, just set a stop at 5% or, you know, whatever. Well, that it's different for every stock. What's important is what the chart tells you. Where is realistic support and where is realistic resistance? In this case, you know, it's very obvious there's resistance there. And, you know, I can say that, you know, $27 is my first target. And that doesn't change the fact that this thing is going to fight to get through this resistance level, more than likely. And so I need to be prepared for that. And emotionally, I need to have a plan in place to deal with that, because if you don't, you will make bad decisions in the heat of the moment. Where did I get the stocks that we looked at? I ran several of my scans, mostly pullback scans, um, and I don't know, I whipped through a few hundred tickers and pulled out the 37 that popped out as something would be worth looking at, and then I dug a little bit deeper through the 37 and picked those 10, and then we picked a couple off of that list of 10. Ernie's asking, in the dashboard, could it be possible to add a days in the trade column? If there are 8 to 10 open positions, it helps me be mindful of how long for each. Well, let's just go look at this. You know, let's save the changes. Something may happen that I want to look at it. I'm going to just pull up a test account because I've got open positions. I know what you're saying, and there's two downsides to it, Ernie. One is every time I add a field to the list, there's a a marginal additional amount of resources that it takes to do that, so it gets marginally slower unless you have a faster computer at the same time. Okay, that's logical. That kind of makes sense. The second thing is I don't quite understand if you have a plan in place for every trade, how long you're in them will work out naturally. Do you understand what I'm saying? The I don't think you want to start approaching things where I only want to I only want to look at the trades that are over 10 days old. I want to manage those. You should manage every position you're in, and with a plan in place, what's important is the risk at the current stop where you've got the stop set right now, and the current price and your open profit and loss. So, in this case, for example, let's just say that the Z trade has been open 6 months. and it's up 43%. It it is less in need of attention than the ABC trade, which is down 13.6%, or perhaps the KMI trade, which is down 6.5%. So the point is, or this what Flex, whatever that is, FLXN, which is down 39% in this test account here. Those are the ones that need to be managed. So what's important is your open P&L, your current level of risk to your stop, to what your current stop is, and that's the important factors in my mind. I'm open to discussion about that with you, but I don't quite see why an arbitrary set of days should matter. It's what the chart's telling you that's really important, at least in my opinion. Yes, Joan, I use TC2000 for my scans, and I've published, I think, pretty much all of them. And if you ask me if you're in the room, um, or by email to that email, I'll pull up again, and let me just do that. Um, Let me pull up thank you, my email there. Yeah, you could send an email to my address, esc952@gmail.com. And, if you have particular sets of scans you're looking for, or if you see me in the room, just PM me or ask me in the open, and I will post links to them. I can't just say, well, here's all my scans, because I literally have hundreds of them. That was kind of my forte for a long, long time. I was known for writing scans. Both, I wrote them for all the candlestick signals, and then people started asking me for one-offs. I need a scan to do this, that, or the other. So I have a bunch of them, and I'll be happy to share them with you. But as I said, most of the ones tonight I used the pullback because the market's been in a short-term pullback. So I was looking for things that are matching the current market. When you delete planned trades, why do the trade numbers don't reset? It's just an accounting thing. It's just I understand what you're saying, Claude, and somebody else asked me the same thing. I believe it was Nini in the room one day, and it's just an accounting thing because each trade does have a number to it. So, and that number is not you're not. I hope you're not trying to remember what trade 37 was, or trade 15, or trade 167. You remember the ticker and the date. You remember, the patterns. Those are the type of things you remember. You won't remember that it was number 23. But we can certainly, like I said, you're the second person that's asked about that. We can talk about that as whether it's valuable or not, and if you have a good argument, we'll certainly look at it. I want to make this tool as useful as I can for as many people, and so we'll do whatever we need to do. Yeah, when I use the trade log, um, you click on the search button, and there are many ways that you can filter it. Let's say I only want to look at planned trades. I unclick open and close, set the filter, and now I'm down to just planned trades. Or I want to look at all trades, but only for a particular set of dates. You can do that and set the filter. Or if you only want to look for, I only want to look at trades for the ticker Z. And it pulls up all the trades for ticker Z, and it says I've got two that are planned, one that's closed, and one that's open. Okay, so you can find trades lots of different ways. Trade numbers is, one possibility, but I don't think that's the one you'll probably use the most. I would not think. So this is all your trades. You could sort this either ascending or descending by trade number and go down through there and find whatever trade you're looking for and go ahead with it. And then of course each account has their own list. So okay. Yes, Donald. Well, I think that's, and I guess it's good afternoon to you. Um, so good day, mate. And yeah, all traders, new, old, experienced, inexperienced, somewhere in between, we all need reminders because we all develop bad habits. And the sad truth is humans are lazy and we will tend to uh, move towards bad habits if we don't have the discipline of a process. And that's what this software is about, is helping you build a process to continuously improve, uh, continuously refine what's working for you, and fix the things that don't. Okay? Um, okay, so it's morning. I apologize. I have a planned, some trades still on them, but it does not give me the graph or the bars that show on yours. I have planned some trades. Rosie, you're going to have to try again. I'm not quite following. You have planned some trades, still on them, but it does not give me the graph or bars. I'm in north central Ohio, James. If you look me up in Google, the town's called Lexington. It's midway between Cleveland and Columbus, if that helps. I think you're talking about Goalview. Are you saying that you don't see progress towards your goal? Was that where you were seeing it? Or I don't think we looked at Performance View tonight, but maybe you were talking about Performance View. But Performance View only looks at closed trades because it is about actual performance, not planned. Oh, James, you're in Cleveland. Well, what are you doing in here? I thought you'd be watching your hometown boys tonight. Yeah, in goal view um, and in dashboard. Well, these are all open trades. Okay, so in dashboard, if you don't have an open trade, it's not listed here. So this is open, unrealized profit and loss, and open trades list. And this is the percent of the account that's allocated to open trades. So if you have just planned the trade but you haven't entered yet, then they are not reflected in your dashboard. And obviously they're not reflected in the performance, which is your closed trades. Okay, if you have open trades and they are not reflected on this page, they're not listed here, um, then I need to talk to you because something is amiss. But open trades should be here, but not not closed trades or planned trades. All three, all of them, any category of trade will be in the trade log. But the dashboard is strictly open trades. Performance view is strictly closed trades. Okay, so if you have open but not exited, then they should show up in trade log as open trades and in dashboard as open trades. Uh, goal view they're still open, so they're not applied against your goals. And the same thing with Performance View. If they're still open, they're not applied against your performance yet. I'd be happy to stick around and talk to you afterwards, and we'll get that figured out. Well, yeah, and Rosie, please keep in mind that I think the best resource really is this manual button, which, let's see if I can pull it up here, how much of my screen is displayed. If we pull up the manual button, it's going to take you to the tutorials page, which you can also access from the main menu, products, Trader Vision tutorial. And the really good, the best resource, I believe, are these videos down here. Each of these videos will walk you through a lot of the things we did tonight. The guide is there, and I know that a lot of people prefer written material, but just bear in mind it's also the hardest thing for us to keep updated. We can record a video very quickly in a few minutes. It takes a lot of work to keep a manual updated, and therefore manuals are always behind. Oh, Rosie, you have not done an update since April. Okay. Um, then we need to talk and we need to get you updated. Um, let's talk about that afterwards, uh, after the session. But version 1.84 is the current version, and you're probably way back like 1.6 or 1.6 something. Thank you, Donald. Yeah, I think they're pretty good. Doug does a great job, and I'm working on a few myself, and we'll hopefully get things sorted out and make them up to date as we keep changing the program. And I continue to add little tweaks here and there. As I said, Goal View is going to change to improve it, to make it more realistic a little bit here sometime in the future, not too far away. Okay, guys, I'm going to turn off the recorder.